We're still joined by the Mail's Andrew Pearce and the Mirror's Kevin Maguire, and also the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is with us. Ms Cooper, just on the politics of the personal for a second, you said some time ago that you would be prepared to take in a Syrian refugee into your home and house them. Would you do the same for a Ukrainian refugee once they start to arrive here?
I think that's not what's needed at the moment. What we need is to be able to reunite families, people who want to stay with their own friends and family, people who are trying to reach out to those who love them, those who need them. And we've seen people leaving Ukraine, leaving the war zone, fleeing the most terrible Russian bombardment, and who are now trying to join their children, maybe, who might be working here in the Ukraine, elderly parents who are not able to do so, people who are wanting to welcome them and to look after them, and they're not able to do so. What I've been calling for, and what I think all of us should be calling for, is for the government to make sure that families can reunite. That's what our focus should be on now.
Do you think we should do as many other European countries are doing and just drop the whole idea of a visa and adopt a visa waiver scheme, so that all that these refugees have to do is to show a legitimate passport or other form of legitimate identity to get into this country, that we don't fuss around anymore with visas, or at least not for maybe 3 to 6 months? What would you say to that, a visa waiver system?
So we've been calling for very simple emergency visas that could effectively be issued on the spot as soon as you've done the biometrics and the security checks, which you can also do very quickly. That means you then also know that how many people are arriving, and you can make sure, particularly where there are children involved, because we know that many of the families who are trying to leave have been women and children, and you can make sure that there's the support for children in place as well. And I think that that's why the shambolic issue that we've seen at the moment, where people can't get those biometric checks or can't get any of that support because the government hasn't put the emergency centres in place. That's what we need. At the moment, people are being sent really from pillar to post. And you've had those awful scenes where we've got visa centres in Brussels that are only open 3 days a week, and nothing in Calais or even on the route to Calais for people who are driving their family back home and not even able to get to see anybody anywhere, despite the fact that the Home Office told us and the Home Secretary told us that those centres would be in place. It is not beyond the wit of the Home Office to be able to get those basic centres in place in order to be able to speedily issue the emergency visas that people need so they can get to some kind of safety and sanctuary.
Are you any clearer in the questioning that you've done in your role, shadowing the Home Office, as to what refugees should do once they get to northern France?
I think it is really chaotic at the moment, and that's what's so heartbreaking with these stories, because, I mean, we couldn't work out where this new centre is going to be. We know that there is a visa centre in Paris, but people have been told that they can't get appointments there maybe for another week. And we were told that there was a new centre that had been set up in Calais. Then we were told it wasn't, it was going to be in Lille, and then we were told that actually even that hasn't been decided or hasn't been set up yet. Now, you know, if I can't work that out in the House of Commons, asking questions and trying to get to the bottom of it, I don't know how families who are on the move, who've maybe got kids in the back of the car, who are desperately trying to work out what they should be doing, I don't know how people work it out. And I think that's what's really so shambolic. Now, we have heard overnight that maybe the armed forces are going to help the Home Office manage that. Well, you know, given the Home Office has been so chaotic, I hope that is a step forward. We have also heard that the government may be bringing in a new minister, Richard Harrington, to take over from Priti Patel. Well, I do hope that that happens as well, because I think that we've just not had any proper answers from Priti Patel, and it is just so chaotic. It's not fair on people.
And I know she's under an enormous amount of pressure. I think people find it absolutely extraordinary that it's taking this long. And when we've spoken to other government ministers about it, they don't defend the delay. They promise that it's going to be sped up and it's going to happen, you know, hopefully within the next 24 hours. And still, we don't have the results. I wonder whether, Yvette Cooper, you think it is... Because there is a suspicion that it isn't actually about logistics, it's about will. And, you know, whether that's intentional or not, that is the impression that's coming across to people. That actually Priti Patel may not want to allow refugees in. Now, that would be a devastating indictment of our compassion as a country. But do you think that's what's behind it?
Well, I think so far she hasn't shown that she wants us enough to help in order to deliver and to make it happen. And that, in the end, is what she and the government will be judged by, is what they actually do in practice. We did have I think the initial Home Secretary's response and the Home Office response was to try and say, you can just use the existing visa system. We had that awful moment where a Home Office minister suggested people should apply for seasonal agricultural visas in order to come and pick fruit in the UK, and that was somehow the answer. So, you know, we have had those awful moments as part of this debate. I mean, I hope that they do want to do the right thing. And we have seen other government ministers across the government wanting to do the right thing. And I think this should be something that is supported right across the country, that shouldn't need to be a party political issue. You saw, obviously, in Parliament yesterday, there were MPs from all sides saying, really, you know, for God's sake, just speed this system up, get it sorted out, get a grip. And I really hope that is what will happen.
Well,
the really frustrating thing, of course, is that the Home Office did have a long time to prepare, and as in much longer to prepare on this, because British intelligence had been warning that this would happen and that we would see this invasion for some time. They were also warned before Christmas that the visa centres that were in place across Europe weren't adequate and were causing long problems and long delays.
Well, we'd very much like to talk to you about the atmosphere in the Commons yesterday in just a second. But news has just come in from the government. The government statement is saying this morning that they are now surging staff to key UK visa application centres around Ukraine. And there's a long list of them in most of the countries to the west of Ukraine: Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Moldova and Poland. They are surging staff as we speak, they say. So taking that at face value, maybe we are beginning to see some movement. But look, we're living in history, aren't we? We're living through extraordinary historical events. Yesterday was one of them in the House of Commons, with a foreign leader directly addressing MPs in the Commons. You were there. How did that feel?
It was a really powerful moment. It was a very historic moment, and it also just really brought it home, the devastation of the war that Ukraine is facing, this illegal war and the Russian bombardment. It is a crime against a democratic nation, what's happening. And to hear the President describe cities going without food and water, children being killed, the daily reality of what he is dealing with, the leadership that he is showing for his country, the bravery that he and the Ukrainian people are showing. It was really humbling to be there to listen to him speak, and I think you saw the tribute that everybody wanted to pay to him and to his country, to the leadership he's showing, and to show solidarity with Ukraine at this terrible time. And
what did you think of his extraordinary channeling of Shakespeare and Churchill in that address?
And that was the moment. Well, such a moment, wasn't it, to say this effectively, to say this is an existential issue for Ukraine, and they have decided to be. They have decided to fight. They have decided to resist the Russian despotism, this assault against democracy. And I think you can see the way that he is inspiring people across Ukraine and the leadership he's showing, but also that this really is a moment in history as well for his country, but for European democracies as well.
And the echoes with 1940 in this country are very strong, aren't they? I mean, when this country stood alone, completely alone, for a very long time against a dictator who wanted to oppress us. Those parallels hold good, don't they?
They do, and I think as well, sitting in the House of Commons, and where so many debates and speeches through history have taken place, and listening to it does make all of those historic parallels come to your mind. But most urgently, it has that sense of that everybody wanting to support the President, but also to support the people of Ukraine as they are going through this. I think to show new, stronger determination to have ever stronger economic sanctions against Russia, what we can do to put pressure on Putin, on the oligarchs that have been connected to him. We had the economic crime bill earlier on this week that I was speaking on as well, which is all about what we should be doing to clamp down on the illicit finance that's been invested here from Russia, to put a halt to that, as well as to have the stronger sanctions in place. We feel like we're doing our bit, but it's nothing compared to what Ukraine is going through.
Yvette Cooper, thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you.